There is an earlier Sixtus of Bourbon-Parma who was a Belgian army officer in the First World War. Prince Sixtus Henry of Bourbon-Parma is considered Regent of Spain by some Carlists who accord him the titles Duke of Aranjuez, Infante of Spain, and Standard-Bearer of Tradition. Prince Sixtus Henry of Bourbon-Parma is one of three pretending headmasters of the Order of Saint Lazarus since 2015. Early life. Sixtus was born in Pau, Pyrénées-Atlantiques during the World War II Vichy regime of France, the second son of Prince Xavier of Bourbon-Parma and his wife Madeleine de Bourbon-Parma. He belongs to a cadet branch of the former royal dynasty of France, the House of Bourbon, which ruled the independent Duchy of Parma in Italy until 1859, and reigns today in Luxembourg. In exile, his family lived in France. From an early age, Sixtus devoted himself to the cause of Carlism. He studied with the Christian brothers, Benedictines and Marists, as well as with his preceptress Professor Maria Teresa Angulo, from Madrid. He later took courses in law, classical and modern languages, and finance. Under the nom de guerre of Enrique Aranjuez, he enlisted in the Spanish Foreign Legion in 1965. On the 2nd of May that year he swore loyalty to the Spanish flag with the oath then in use, which excluded political compromise. Sixtus later volunteered with the Portuguese armed forces in the Angolan War of Independence, claimed the Carlist succession. Sixtus's father, Prince Xavier of Bourbon-Parma, was the leader of the National Council of the Traditionalist Communion, the largest faction of Spanish Carlists, and thus claimed to be the rightful monarch of Spain from 1952 until his abdication in 1972. Xavier's successor, in whose favor Xavier renounced his Carlist claim in 1975, was Sixtus's older brother Carlos Hugo, Duke of Parma, who took the title Carlos IV as claimant to the Spanish crown. However, Carlos Hugo's deviations from traditional Carlist ideology, most notably his endorsement of Tito's socialism, caused many Carlists to question his leadership. Carlos Hugo sought to change the political direction of the Carlist movement through the Carlist Party, of which he was the official head during the 1976 Carlist gathering when the fatal Montejara incident occurred, and at which Sixtus Henry was also present, leading opposition to his brother's reforms. After the death of Xavier in 1977, Sixtus put forth a claim to be regent, and took the title Standard-Bearer of Tradition. Sixtus's claim was supported by his mother. His father's last wishes were difficult to discern. Sixtus publicly protested when Carlos Hugo donated the Carlist archives to the government of Spain in 2002. Carlos Hugo renounced his claim to the throne in 1979 and 1980, but reasserted it in 2003. After his death in 2010, his son Carlos, Duke of Parma, succeeded him in the eyes of the Carlists loyal to Carlos Hugo, and claimed the kingship as Carlos Javier II. However, two other Carlist organizations recognize Sixtus as the rightful regent. Some of them recognize him as king, under the title Sixtus Enrique I. Sixtus himself has never explicitly asserted his right to the throne. Rather, he has stated that he would prefer to remain regent in the hope that one of Carlos Hugo's sons may return to traditional Carlist ideology. Nonetheless, he has not objected to his followers shouting, "Viva el Rey!" during his speeches. Later life. Although the youngest of 6 children and the second son of his parents, Sixtus inherited his childhood home, the Château de Lignières near the middle of France, from his mother, whose dowry it had been. In 2010, he sought a court order to prevent the continued exhibition of artworks by the Japanese artist Takashi Murakami at the palaces of Versailles. He has publicly stated that it denatures French culture. Sixtus was present at the episcopal ordination of 4 bishops who belonged to the Society of St. Pius X by Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre on 30 June, 1988 at Econ, Switzerland, and was the first to publicly congratulate him. Sixtus has traveled widely in Latin America, both Spanish and Portuguese speaking. In January 2001, while traveling through Argentina, he was in a nearly fatal traffic accident, from which he did not completely recover. He has difficulties walking as a result of the accident, prompting him to limit public appearances. Orders: Bailiff Grand Cross of Honor and Devotion of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta.